Former defensive back and assistant coach at Arkansas, Lewis Campbell, now joins the Morning Rush. Coach, good morning. Thanks for making some time. I know that you and Clay have been friends for quite some time. So just between you and me, that fish that he sent Tommy yesterday, were you the one to catch it, or was that actually him?
Well, he taught me everything I know about trout.
Oh, don't tell us that, Coach.
No. It was probably his, but I'm glad that Chuck was on first to kind of set the record straight. So I don't have to put out any disclaimer in my association with Clay.
Yeah, well, I don't think we fully exposed the truth with Clay. Maybe we can peel that onion back a little bit more here as we have a conversation throughout the morning. We're just so appreciative you took some time. I know you're a name that's familiar to a lot of Razorback fans, mainly because you coached for a long time at Arkansas, and before that you played with the Razorbacks. You're one of the few coaches that survived a few transitions at Arkansas. How did you manage to hang in there so long through 4 different head coaches and remain on those staffs?
It was brutal, I'll tell you that. It was, but you know, when I came back to Arkansas and started coaching in '90, I felt like, you know, I'd been to 3 different places in less than a year. And my oldest son, asked me, we were driving to Tampa. I went there for a long 1-year storied career in the NFL. He said, "Dad, where are we from?" And I said, well, "What do you mean, where are we from?" He said, "Well, you know, we go to Hamburg as grandparents, and we've been at Oklahoma State or Arkansas, went to college. You know, I don't know where to tell people I'm from." And he was in the 6th grade at that time, and I'm telling you, that tore at me right there. So when I had a chance to come back to Arkansas, I took it and said, "Hey, I may have to empty trash, mow the fields, but I'm going to be here a while." And good Lord willing, it worked out that way.
You're from Hamburg, as you mentioned. There's been a lot of great coaches from South Arkansas. Of course, Hamburg's most commonly known and most popular for Lewis Campbell and then Scottie Pippen. That's what everybody always says. But you look at the coaches that came from South Arkansas. You start with Bear Bryant. You talk about Barry Switzer. I mean, there's just been some really impactful coaches, and I know you coached with Coach Bryant towards the tail end of his career.
Well, you know, I always told everybody, you know, there were 4 great coaches come out of South Arkansas. And in order, you know, there's obviously Coach Bryant from Morrow Bottoms, Charlie McClendon, you know, longtime LSU great coach. Lewis, I think it was, of course, Coach Switzer. And then there's Lewis Campbell. And the immediate question was, who's that last guy you talked about? So, yeah, it was a story.
The last one's the best fly fisherman of the 4. I can promise you that.
Well, probably out of that group, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So
there's not many guys we get to ask about being around Coach Bryant and spending time and learning from, you know, one of the names that's still, you know, passed away in the early 80s. You know, we're talking 40 years after his passing. He's still brought up routinely in college football. What insight can you give us from your time being around him?
Well, I tell you what, he was, I mean, if I had to send my son to play or coach under somebody, it'd be him, because to me, he just personified, he was what coaching was all about. I mean, if you played or coached for him, it was 2 things you were going to have a team that did. Be physical. You win by being tougher than the other guy, not smarter, not call better plays. You just go out there and kick his butt on that particular play, and that's what you got to. That's what he was. And yet, off the field, if there's one guy in this world I had to go see, other than Clay, because Clay got all the money, but other than Clay, it'd be a guy like Coach Bryant. I mean, he would give you the shirt off his back. One quick story: when we got to Alabama, my wife was a teacher, and we'd been recruiting. She had picked us up at the airport. She's in the back seat, and I'm driving. Coach Bryant's in the driver's side. Doesn't say anything. He doesn't know anybody's wife's name. I mean, back then you just didn't socialize like you do now. And he looked back there and he said, "Honey, you working now?" She said, "Well, Coach, I'm trying to get a job. And I'm a teacher, and I've applied. Blah blah." He said, "Well, who does that hiring down there?" And, she said, well, it's Dr. Whoever is the superintendent. And as God is my witness, literally the next day she went to work.
Huh.
So that was the pull he had, and yes, that was the care he had. That and I could go on and on about players, coaches he's helped. Just unbelievable person.
We got many fly fishing stories, and I mean, I don't know how many times Lewis and I have gone fly fishing together. It's got to be in the hundreds by now. And when we're not going, we're talking about going, or we're sending pictures of flies that we've tied.
Or remembering when you went.
Or talking about why didn't we catch them and what was wrong with that day that we couldn't replicate, the good days that we have. They're not all good days. But I can remember one day we were fishing and I was having trouble with my fly rod and this and that, and I'm complaining. And in the owner of the boat, he says, poor workers find fault with their tools. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, where did you get that story, Coach?
Well, I left Alabama, went to SMU. I was a graduate assistant starting out at Alabama. Coach Bryant flew into Dallas. He called and told me I would be picking him up, what we'd do. And I picked him up at the airport. He says, well, how'd y'all season go? And he knew how it went, because back then that was Ron Meyer's first year. Mustang Mania had not had a chance to kick in yet, but we were awful. I said, well, Coach, we won our first game, and next game, the young quarterback got hurt there in the third quarter. Next game, we had it won, a bad call. I mean, he never said a word. He always just looked straight down the highway, spoke at that unfiltered Campbell. And finally, there was this long, very not good pause in the conversation. But I knew I'd talked way too much. Finally, he said, never looked at me, just looked straight ahead. Poor workers find fault with their tools.
Yeah.
And for the next hour, there was not a word said. So that came the hard way.
Yeah. Well, Lewis and I would sit and watch practice when he was in administration at Arkansas, and we both were fishermen. He was a spin fisherman, fish with jigs or live bait, and I'm a fly fisherman. And we had a friendly bet that one was better than the other. Not one fisherman, but one style. So we went fly fishing one day, and then we went spin fishing. And how'd that turn out, Coach?
Well, unfortunately, we caught a lot more fish fly fishing, and I was hooked from that point on. It's a strange bond when a coach and a media, a sports writer, can be really close friends even while you're working. And only fishing could transcend the friction between coaches and the media. So it's been a long-lasting relationship.
Yep.
Lewis Campbell with us here on the Morning Rush. He played in the defensive secondary at Arkansas in the early 70s, coached for many years at Arkansas. You came back to Arkansas in 1990, and Jack Crow had taken over the program after the departure of Ken Hatfield, and we all know how that ended. But why didn't Jack Crow's time at Arkansas, you had a front row seat, why didn't that work out? But what led up to losing to Citadel that ultimately led to the transition of Joe Kynes?
Well, of course, back then, there wasn't there's not now, but there wasn't a whole lot of patience with losing, especially at Arkansas, and especially with Coach Boyles, running the show as the athletic director. And, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, there weren't as many players at that time as, say, what ended up. But, of course, when Coach Hatfield went the second year in a row at the Cotton Bowl, they had a great, strong senior group. And, we had some good young players, but bottom line is, hey, we didn't do a good enough job coaching. One year, and I guess one game or two into the next year, it was over. And Jack used to always say, hey, y'all tear them down, meaning, you get them in shape, you discipline them, you make them hurt, and I'll bring them back. And that was kind of a famous saying of us assistants that were with Jack, because, there were many very unpleasant memories when I think of Coach Crow.
You saw a lot of highs and a lot of lows across your time at Arkansas. Coach Kynes was an interesting fellow that we didn't probably get to know as well as many other head coaches because of the time, but he took over a tough situation, and he kind of had some of that Alabama grit you're talking about with Coach Bryant because that's where his ties and roots were.
I'm going to tell you what, there's not a better person in this world than Joe Kynes, either as a person and as a football coach. I mean, to me, he had a real gift of getting close to a team or a group, a defense, as he was a coordinator for years and years in the SEC. And I would have given almost my left arm, or I'd give him my fly rod to see what he could have done as the head coach at Arkansas, because he was always very popular, a great interview, and yet when he got into a meeting room, he could feel the pulse of the team and know when to turn it on and when to let up. And you're right. I mean, very, very successful coach and a great friend to this day.
It didn't take long for Arkansas to have some success once Danny Ford took over. You got to the 95 championship. I loved watching those Madre Hill runs, and Barry Lunny at quarterback, I think, is one of the more not that he's underrated, but he's probably, when you start listing greatest quarterbacks at Arkansas, Barry doesn't come up in a lot of conversations. But what Barry did at Arkansas and with Madre and that group that got to the 95 SEC championship was a phenomenal run, Coach.
Well, and that was, from a pure coaching standpoint, that was the highlight of my life as a coach, was being able to get to Atlanta that first year, being in the SEC. And Barry, of course, has been brought out, what effective a coach he was as a head coach there for less than a year. And, I mean, a great person, great family. And you're right. I mean, you think of the great quarterbacks, very seldom does his name come up. And yet he bended some fences, coming off some really bad years that put Arkansas back as being a contender.
Well, you're talking about your great memories and this and that. My greatest memory of you, Coach, was last March when I netted your 30.5-inch brown trout. And there's not many people in this world that have, on a fly rod, on a fly, caught and landed a 30-inch brown trout. And, hey, we can talk about what I've done fly fishing or whatever, but that one kicks my butt, and it was an exhilarating moment. I don't know that I've ever seen you as excited and as I did that day.
Hey, I can die a happy man now, but I'm a lot better trout fisherman than I ever was a coach. And the good thing is that except for whoever's in the boat with you, there is no scoreboard. So nobody really knows the truth other than what you want to let known or put on Facebook. So it's a great sport.
So how much do Clay's fish grow as the weeks and the days pass by?
Well, you got to keep in mind, and no offense intended to the present company, but he is a media guy, He's not a ball coach, I mean, you can't.
There's no fake news, Coach.
Yeah, that's right. But, hey, I'm going to tell you what, when you get right down to it, and you get ready to put a drift and catch a brown trout, I'm serious. There's not very many in this area of the state that are better at doing that than what he is. And he kills me every week. I mean, when you're in a boat and you're running 8 units like they've been doing right now, even a blind hog's going to find an acre every now and then. And that's what I did. But when you get out there and wade at minimum flow, that's technique there, and that's what he can do.
Lewis Campbell with us here on the Morning Rush. He's talking about that 30-plus inch fish that you caught, or whether it's winning a football game. That's what makes you feel alive. I mean, we all got to have something that stirs us emotionally and deeply. And for a lot of us as sports fans, it's when your team scores the big touchdown or caps off the big win. But Coach, we all got to have that one thing that, even as our years get by us, that stir us and drive that spirit within us. And whether it's coaching football or catching a big brown, it's great when you find that passion that can move you like that.
No question. I mean, all my life it's been the 4 F's. Faith first, family, football, and now it's fishing. And just like I called Clay last night, I said, look, how come I lost those 2 browns yesterday? What do you think we could have done? But I mean, like you said, it's a competition. I mean, it's something that you put your heart in and you work to get better at. And it doesn't matter if it's football or fishing. You want to be the best you can be at it. You want to be successful. And, hey, I love this river over here. I mean, I just love being on it or in it. And when I'm there, that's my happy place.
Coach, you finished your career coaching high school football at Sheridan. What led you to go that direction? A lot of coaches that had the success you'd had across many decades would not have wanted to go back to high school, but you went back to a place that had been tough and not had a lot of tradition and finished your career there. What led you to want to coach high school football at the end of your career?
A paycheck.
That's an honest answer, folks, right there.
Well, 2 things. One, I really did want to. I don't, because of like the Bill Keaties or David Alpies, Tommy Tices, the great coaches in this state, I'd always wanted to be a high school coach and know what it was like because of the influence that they had on me, and seeing the impact they had on kids. And, after Sylvester got fired at Mississippi State, I was kind of that age where basically I'm over the hill as an effective college recruiter and all that stuff. And I could have gone to some, 1AA teams or small Division I teams, but that opportunity came up, and I thought, what I got to lose? Of course, I found out I had a lot to lose because we still didn't win. But I enjoyed that. I would not give anything for those 7 years of my life of being in Sheridan with the people there.
There's a tough transition that Sam Pittman and his staff have now in rebuilding the defense, reestablishing an offense. You went through several transitions with coaches. What do you think the biggest challenge for this staff is ahead, separate from the fact that you didn't get spring, coronavirus, all this stuff going on? What are some of the biggest traps when you have a transition with a coaching staff that we're seeing now at Arkansas?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, one, they got to get the feel of the players they're with. I mean, the football team, the position coaches, head coach. I mean, and that's the thing that I've been impressed with of this group is that, they're not into cliches and they may not be the best speakers, on Saturday or Sunday night. But I really think these guys are football coaches. I mean, they know what it is to go out and work, get their hands dirty, and, coach a player hard. And I'm not talking about being physical. I'm just saying hold them accountable, making them do what's right, and that respect goes both ways. And I think they'll earn the respect of their team. And when they do, Arkansas will start turning the corner and get better.
Well, I'm going to say this before he gets off because I want him to be on the line so that there's not a better – Sheridan was lucky to have Lewis Campbell. Arkansas was lucky to have Lewis Campbell. Everybody that's ever been around him has been lucky. I count myself as really being fortunate to develop close friendship with Coach, and it's been on the river, and we don't talk much football. We really don't, surprisingly. We're worried about what size fly we're on and if we're in the right color or if we're fishing the right depth and those type things. It's kind of interesting. My wife is always excited when I go fishing. And I don't mean that in a trite way, but she told me one time, I said, who you going with? I said, I'm going with Lewis. She says, that's good. You'll come back a better person because that's the kind of guy Lewis Campbell is. Might not come back a better fisherman, but I will come back a better person. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Of course, again, we know you're media, so we're going to believe about half of that. But,
that asterisks always got to be in there, right, Coach?
Yeah, exactly. Plus, hey, I'm the only real, other than the son-in-law, who's the best guy in the state, I'm the only friend he's got that's got a trout boat, so he has to say all those things just to be able to fish in this high water.
Dadgum right. Dadgum right.
Well, Coach,
So,
Coach, best of luck on the river today. The next time, which I'm sure won't be long, that Clay does something very embarrassing.
You be sure to let us know.
Be sure and let us know because we'd love to share that. So.
hey, I will do that. The worst day on the river beats cleaning out the garage. I can promise you that.
All right. Well, best
Y'all
of
have a
luck
great
today.
day. Thank
Yeah.
you. You bet.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Coach.
Lewis Campbell, former Arkansas assistant coach and former Razorback, here with us on the Morning Rush.
That's
Fun
fun.
conversation.
Yeah,
Got a
he's on the
little
all-century team, as a defensive
Yep.
back. 3 interceptions against Tennessee in the Liberty Bowl, still a bowl record.
73 or 71.
71.
Yeah. So fun conversation, and I know you guys enjoy your time together, and it's clear y'all have a great bond and friendship. So.
Oh, he's a great guy. Yep. Pretty good fisherman, too.